Go to the big issue today. Can this Frankenstein be repealed? Can Frankenstein be repealed? We have with us Jay Sekulow of the American Center for Law and Justice. Mr. Sekulow, welcome. Where are you? What line? Okay, Jay, welcome. You're on line 2. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Can this be repealed effectively? I know that there's going to be talk about it, but are the Republicans serious about it?
Well, I think they're going to try, but I think, and you've been saying this for a long time in the last couple of weeks, the reality is once these things become law, once it's signed by the president, it's very difficult to get a repeal. It would take such a massive change in the Congress in the next election, in the midterm elections, and then you've still got to face veto possibilities, so it's a long shot. I think what you're going to see, and I know this for a fact, is litigation starting tomorrow, and this has got really serious constitutional defects, and I think that's going to be where a lot of the effort is. There will be attempts on repeal. There is going to be even attempts to have the reconciliation package going to the Senate amendment, what they're calling. This is the changes that try to get the House language the way the House members thought they were voting on it through the Senate. That's going to face some hurdles. But look, once the president signs it tomorrow, the reality is we're going to be stuck with this until the court says it's unconstitutional.
Well, that's the next question. I phrased the question perhaps wrongly when I said, can this monster be repealed? You actually answered another question by saying there will be lawsuits because it's unconstitutional. How do the two questions differ?
Well, they don't in a sense, because if it's deemed unconstitutional by a court, it is effectively null and void. It is, in fact, it's more than repealed at that point. It's not an act of the legislature doing the repeal. It's the judiciary, but it stops it dead in its tracks. Now, the question will be, in this particular situation, I'll give you kind of a quick summary of what we've got. You've got 37 states right now that have pending legislation requiring, Michael, their state attorney generals to sue the federal government over the constitutionality of the health care bill. Pending in 37 states. It's already through over a dozen. Virginia and Florida will file this week. Our organization, the American Center for Law and Justice, we're filing on behalf of individual members, individual citizens, because of this mandate that you buy insurance, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And also, we're going to be joining in some of these suits filed by the attorney generals through filing briefs with the courts. So there's going to be a whole series of it. But yes, net effect, you're right. It's the same. It's repealed. It's stopped. It's deemed unconstitutional. And it's over. But this is going to be a fight ultimately to the Supreme Court of the United States. But I expect it to move fairly quickly.
Well, here's the question. We know from the FDR days when he overreached that the Schechter brothers, I'm sure you're very familiar with that case, correct?
The steelworkers cases, all those cases, a whole series of them, yeah.
Well, no, the Schechter brothers, the 4 kosher butchers from New York who we put in jail, and they came out and sued FDR and won, and his entire act was thrown out. The National Recovery Act was declared unconstitutional. So the little guy can win, can't they?
And it's going to be individual. Your audience is the plaintiff here, because it's great that the attorney generals are filing suit, and that's wonderful that some of them will do that. But it is individual citizens that will be filing suits or joining in existing suits that are filed in the next week or two that are going to make the difference here. And yes, you're talking about the 4 kosher butchers. There's also going to be the taxi cab driver in Topeka, the restaurant owner in Memphis. There's going to be a whole series of small businesses and individuals that are going to be filing these suits and can stop the whole thing dead in its tracks.
Well, look, one of the clauses is you must buy a policy that covers mental health and substance abuse disorder services. What if someone says, I don't want to pay for a junkie's treatment? Why should I be forced to pay for bad behavior? Is that a legal avenue that could be pursued?
It is, because they're arguing. Here's what the Congress is saying. The Congress is saying, look, we've got the authority to do this because under the Constitution we get to regulate commerce. But, they've never regulated commerce to make you buy something when you're not getting something in return. In other words, to have a driver's license, they can mandate you have to have insurance. Well, that makes sense because you're getting the privilege of a driver's license. What is your privilege here? If you don't buy this, you don't get to live in America anymore? I mean, is that what this deal is at the end of the day? And that's what I think the difference is going to be in these cases. And that's why you're right. It is your audience. It's people that listen to your broadcasts like this, that are going to be the plaintiff in this lawsuit, in these lawsuits. And they're going to be the ones that stop this. It's not going to be the Congress at this point. It's not going to be the election in 2010, in just months away. It is going to be individual citizens saying, I'm not going to take this, and that the privilege of living in America is not that the Congress gets to tell me what to do whenever they want to do it.
All right, Jay, we're going to give out the American Center for Law and Justice a website and email and how people can help you. And you and I are going to talk off the air about how I might help directly with my Savage Legal Fund. But I want to take another avenue here, and I brought this up 3 or 4 weeks ago. What if individuals wanted to opt out from having to buy insurance for religious reasons? As you must know, and no one wrote this today, I found this 4 weeks ago, the Amish and the Christian Scientists are excluded from having to buy insurance. Are you aware of that?
The only ones excluded from having to buy the insurance, though.
Right, they're the only ones excluded from having to buy insurance because their religious decrees do not approve of various aspects of this policy. Why couldn't people of other religions opt out based on religious principles, saying it's unfair to permit others of a different religion, such as the Amish and Christian Scientists, but I want to be out because I'm a Catholic and I oppose X, Y, and Z. I'm a Catholic and I oppose abortion. I don't want to be involved with this. Or I'm a Catholic and I oppose it because I don't want to treat drug addicts. I think that it's a moral sin to abuse your body that way. Or I'm Jewish and I oppose it for whatever the reasons are. Couldn't this initiate tens of millions of lawsuits?
This narrow exemption they put in place is so narrow, it is just really the Christian Science and the Amish. I mean, literally, that's what it is. Michael, you're not just coming up with this. That's what it says. And the reality is there are serious religious objections to this, and you mentioned the Catholics. The abortion issue is alive and well in this, unfortunately. I should say alive and a disaster in this, in that the executive order the president signed, absolutely not worth the paper it's written on.
Yes.
And the Planned Parenthood has already said that, by the way. They're saying it's meaningless.
Yes.
And you're right, but that brings up another serious challenge. It's the idea that you would only protect two religious minorities, but not other religious objectors and other religious dissenters, points to a First Amendment problem with this. I've been saying that for weeks, by the way, that provision, which is not getting much attention, raises serious religious freedom issues, because this idea you would protect these two groups, but nobody else, there's no way a court can approve that.
Well, I wrote a monologue on it like 3-4 weeks ago. Probably you and I came upon it on our own, but I think this is a monster method of getting through to the courts. Now, that brings us to the next thing, Jay, the courts. A lower court first, and then to the Supreme Court? What chance is there in a lower court?
It's going to depend. I think the best strategy here, the one we're going to implement, is to file in multiple jurisdictions. But Washington, D.C. on these actually has been pretty good. There's a number of judges there that will take the issue of Congress's congressional authority, or lack thereof, very seriously. I've argued a lot of cases at the Supreme Court of the United States. And I'll tell you this. I met with our staff today, both in Washington and Virginia, and I said, look, I want a judicial count. I want to know how many justices are likely to go with us here. We'll have that analysis done in the next 24 hours. But I think there's 5. And that's, I was not a math major, but at the Supreme Court, there's 9 justices. You get to 5, you carry the day. And I think the reality is that it'll have to go through the District Court, Court of Appeals, and then ultimately the Supreme Court. But this is not typical litigation. There's not a lot of factual dispute. There's no depositions of the significant kind you'd find in regular litigation. So this can move. I've done statutory cases that have moved from the beginning to the end in 20 months. So it's possible that this is wrapped up in a 18 to 24-month period all the way up.
Well, I want to reiterate to the listeners who are very, very sad today by the brutal dictatorship tactics of, let's say, a thug that were used by Pelosi and company to ram this through against the will of the people without real serious debate. It was just simply done by fiat, in essence, under the guise of a democratic process. That I got to go back to the Schechter brothers. Here were 4 little kosher butchers who objected to the major centerpiece of FDR's legislation. He put them in jail, by the way, because they wouldn't comply. They came out of jail and they sued the government, and they won. These were 4 butchers who literally derailed socialism under FDR. It can happen again, couldn't it, Jay?
It has happened in our history multiple times, and I think it will happen again. The reality is it's going to be the American people taking this to court and taking a stand that's going to make the difference here at the end of the day.
Now, your American Center for Law and Justice, how do people help you?
Is to go to aclj.org. We've got a lot of information posted online. The litigation is already we're drafting. You got to wait till the president signs, obviously. You got to find the right plaintiffs. There'll be plenty out there of people that could bring a lawsuit here. And the idea, we're a membership organization, so people can make donations online if they care to at aclj.org. But we've got a tremendous amount of information available on the website, and I encourage people to go. That's the best way to contact us.
How many members does the ACLJ have? Are you able to tell us?
A little over 1,200,000.
And how many members does the ACLU have?
About 2 million.
You're that big?
Yeah, they're bigger than us.
No, but you're that big? You're